Okay,
Fantastic.
good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. We are looking forward to talking about creative optimization and taking a look at how SellCheck helps us optimize creative for better conversion, whether in the store, online, or whatever the purchasing moment is where your shopper is. Really quick, before we get started, we will take care of a couple housekeeping items. First, this event is being live captioned by 3Play Media. To access the captions, click the little closed caption icon in the bottom of your Zoom dashboard. And also, we will leave time at the end of today's webinar discussion for questions. So at any point, feel free to drop your question in the Q&A box, also located in the bottom of your Zoom dashboard. Thank you again for joining us today. My name is Bridget Ling. I am the VP of Marketing at RAZR. RAZR is a marketing technology company based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we leverage three things: behavioral science, our own configurable technology platform, and our strategy and creative teams. And we work to influence consumer decisions in the financial services, healthcare, and CPG spaces. And I'm excited to introduce Lynn Neal. Lynn is RAZR's Global Practice Officer. Prior to RAZR, Lynn spent 33 years at Procter & Gamble, leading their behavioral science activation for P&G's brands and retailers. Lynn now serves as our Global Practice Officer here at RAZR, and he specifically leads the SellCheck division, applying behavioral science on behalf of all of our global clients. Lynn, with that, I will hand it over to you.
Well, thanks a lot, Bridget. I appreciate that introduction. And thanks to all of you for joining our webinar today. This one's going to be a fun one. We're going to put our thinking caps on a little bit and take the SellCheck challenge, looking at some creative and thinking about what we would do to improve it, to make it work even harder at retail. And this optimization of creative is so important because creative is the biggest lever we can push in order to make a difference in our campaigns. And that's the findings of Google right here that identified up to 70% of a campaign's success is driven by its creative, not its placement, but it's really what our messaging is, how well we're drawing in the viewer, and how well we're going to convert them in that process. That's exactly what SellCheck does, is it works with brands, agencies, retailers to optimize creative and increase conversion. We do that utilizing human vision AI and expertise in the area of behavioral science applied to marketing, helping get in the shopper's mind so that they absolutely convert when they're at the moment of truth. We do this for a number of brands globally, more than 1,600 right now. You probably recognize a few of these parent companies. We do companies large and small. We have some companies that have been year on year. I think we're passing 10 years with Procter & Gamble, 10 years with Mondelez, and some of these companies not far behind. We work globally. I think we're in more than 76 countries now. And the reason that SellCheck can work on a global basis and across cultures, age groups, and categories is because our work is based on how the human operating system functions. I won't go too deep into the core behavioral science today, but many of you are probably familiar with these terms, System 1 and System 2. System 1 is the quick way that our brain thinks, kind of helps us get through our day without utilizing a lot of energy. What's important is shoppers shop, including us, in System 1 mode. And when SellCheck is looking at creative and looking to optimize it, we're looking through that lens of the System 1 shopper mode to make those improvements. Now, the question is, does it work? That's an emphatic yes. I'm going to share a third party's A/B versus control test here. So you can picture this was a test of brands across 9 categories. There were 15 control stores, 15 stores in the A leg, that's going to be the non-optimized creative, and 15 stores in the optimized leg. That is the creative that has been optimized to perform optimally for the shopper. So looking at the A leg that had non-optimized creative, these gray bars represent what the incremental sales were when a piece was placed in aisle, some marketing collateral material placed by the product. And if you just kind of average with your eye across these bars, you'd say probably about a 6% plus increase when there was some, marketing collateral placed next to the product. Well, we're kind of conditioned to feel pretty good about that. 6% increase when we invest some of our marketing dollars in aisle feels good. However, take a look at the B leg that had optimized creative, utilizing SellCheck's behavioral science approach. The orange bars represent the same execution, same brand, same placement, But you can see the incredible increase that you got with optimized creative, about 30% on average. And we saw increases in 8 out of the 9 categories. So optimized creative definitely moves the needle. We want you guys to participate in a little behind the scenes. Like I said, put your thinking caps on. So we've got 3 challenges here that we're going to show you. Now, our first challenge that we have is this banner placed in aisle. I'll tell you a little bit about this product. We've actually blinded it in this case. So it's not the original brand. So the creative has been blinded. But I'll tell you that Revive, in this case, would be a recognized brand known in the premium segment of hair care. They're executing this sign, and they've got 3 communication objectives that they provided us. The first was to drive awareness of Revive's organic, bold, and brilliant product. The second was to drive the claim, the longevity claim of protecting color for week after week. And the third was to incent trial with a $2 coupon that you see right here. So this would be a traditional kind of input we'd get in SellCheck. So we're going to ask you in a moment via poll, what would you do on this? I want to show you one more piece of input that we bring into the SellCheck process, and it's the use of human vision AI. So this is an algorithm that actually generates several outputs. The first looking like a heat map. We can look through it through a few other lenses, but I wanted to show you the actual raw data on this heat map for this execution. Heat map's pretty intuitive. You'd imagine that the red and orange would be where the most intensity is, and then it kind of cascades down from there. Think about this heat map as where that instinctive eye is going in the first second. Like if you glance to the right and look back real quick, you know, you get a color spectrum in your eyes. You're maybe not be sure what you've seen. That's exactly what AI heat mapping outputs put out there. It's where that instinctive eye goes when our cognitive brain hasn't kicked in yet. So here's a heat map to the product. Now, what do you think you would do? What we're going to do is share with you a poll on screen, and it's going to have a few options. Pick one. And one of them in those options is one that we actually did on the creative. And I'll talk you through all of them as we go through. Bridget, why don't we pull that poll up?
All right, here comes your first poll. What would you do to optimize the creative for Revive?
And if it's blocking the creative there, just drag that poll over to the side. I think you can do that and pick one.
We'll give everybody a minute here to think it through and register your vote.
Weigh in. We gave everybody a bailout of I'm not sure. Some of these are not very easy. That's okay.
Oh, we're almost there. All right. Looks like we have a winner. Lynn, on the question of what would you do, increase the coupon value scored 20%. Add a technical reason to believe is the winner by recommendation from our panelists or from our registrants today at 40%. Raise the brand registration is at 30%. And I'm not sure, 10%.
10%, all fair out there. And all of those are reasonable shots to take. Okay, so let's take a look at the final creative side by side. What you're seeing in the center of your screen is the optimized creative. And over to the right for reference, we're going to show the before. Let me actually talk through the polling results here. And I understand the response on these completely. So, you know, the first one we talked about is increasing the coupon value. We did not recommend that one to the client. It's not because that couldn't drive more sales, but think about the ramifications. I mean, that is an investment by the brand. So telling them to just make their price lower, you know, that'd be a magic wand that we could put on everything and you might get some instantaneous sales, but you're paying for that and you might be denigrating your equity over time. So what we'll do with clients, if they have chosen a coupon value or redemption value, we will certainly honor that and not tell them to spend more. The exception might be if we see a value that's exceptionally low and wouldn't make a difference, or is almost like insulting to the shopper. If we saw something here that said you get 25 cents off, we'd say, hey guys, if you're going to do a coupon, make it worthwhile to motivate here. But we normally wouldn't tell folks to spend more to sell their product by discounting it. The second one, add a technical reason to believe, or an RTB. This is absolutely a good cut to take. The challenge we've got on this one is this one's already copy intensive that we have right here. So adding another RTB starts to sort of upset the beauty visual and add a lot of technical approach to this one. What's important as our panelists are working through this, they understand the equities and the heritage of this brand. Revive, even though the brand is blinded in this case, is a very well-known brand and regarded as premium. So we're going to give the nod in this case that they're going to have a powerful, meaningful benefit in the category, helps protect color week after week, and that their constituency here is going to trust them a little bit that they're going to deliver on that promise. And the coupon helps provide that insurance that they're not going to make a big mistake. So adding an RTB, not a bad idea, but it would be difficult to do in this execution that is already challenged by all that it has going on. So what we did do on this one, as one of the moves, there are many that we'll talk through here, is we raised the brand registration. Remember that we said that Revive is highly recognized and respected. Look at the one on the right. They've got it buried down in the bottom, along with the word organic. And that was really one of the key elements to deliver on this whole proposition. One of the challenges you have with this execution on the right is when you really break it down from a cognitive standpoint, there are 6 areas, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that the brain will try to process when walking in the aisle. And they're presented at this level that they're evenly spaced. It's hard to break them up. It just makes for difficult processing. And our human operating system says, gosh, that looks hard. And it just instinctively lets us walk down the aisle and move on. So what we did on the right here was really work through aiding that cognitive registration of this whole piece and improving the top-down hierarchy. We did that with what's called cognitive or visual chunking in this case. If you look at the piece now, we've grouped some really important elements up here at the top. We knew that this visual, this is what's going to have some stopping power. You saw it appeared in the heat map. We amplified that even more. You can see that increase and almost making it larger in life. And we're trying to cognitively group this Revive Organic, bold and brilliant with this bold visual. Look at how the negative space was increased right here. This claim is their power claim that they have for a longevity color protection. We wanted to isolate that a little better and help it be processed, especially important since it's 4 lines of copy here. Even though it's 1 word per line, we want the viewer to see this down the aisle and be able to take it in as a distinct chunk of information. And then finally, we moved our $2 and consolidated it so that it's at the bottom. It's still very important, but we placed it as a closure element. Instead of having it spread over 2 spots, we're really letting the viewer see what the proposition is, be motivated by the benefit, and then realize that they've got an incentive for trial once we've engaged them on the who and what of this proposition. So, did it work? Well, the revised execution scored in the SellCheck green zone. And what we know is that correlates with superior market performance. So while I can't share the actual numbers, what I can share is that the results are consistent with what you saw in our blind test earlier, where that optimized creative significantly outperforms the non-optimized in market. Okay, now a couple of things that we looked at when we were going through that piece. Remember that I supplied the heat map. Well, that plays into our process of assessing creative and optimizing it through the 4 C's. AI generated heat maps are important and helpful, but they really help just on that awareness piece. What's catching my initial eye? And is that element something that's setting up our product proposition? I mean, you can have something over there that catches the shopper's eye, but it might not have anything to do with the brand or what the brand's benefit is. So we'll take that AI generated heat map output, but we need to look at it through the critical lens of behavioral science and marketers and say, okay, is this setting up our product proposition? What really delivers on persuasion and getting that conversion increase are the balance of the 4 C's. And this is what our behavioral science leaders in our panelist group go through one by one and reach a consensus output. Does it connect with the shopper? Can we recognize the brand and variant really quickly? Does the shopper recognize who's speaking to them? Do we convey information clearly? Are we telling our story where it's clear, succinct, and choiceful, single-minded? And then does it close the sale? In this case, this execution was aided by the $2 coupon, but it's still got to deliver on the first 3 C's to get there. It's got to be noticeable. It's got to be compelling. That's why that visual chunking that happened in the recommendation from the panelists is so important. So AI heat map output really great on helping with awareness, but you've got to pull through that whole story to get through persuasion. And that's what the whole process entails. Okay, let's move on to our second SellCheck challenge that we have right here. This is a fun one. Okay, take a look at this visual here. I'll tell you a little bit. This is a multi-brand execution, and a lot of you are faced with those. They are inherently more challenging because you're mixing brand equities, etc. Obviously, we have a pretty provocative visual. You can tell she's pretty happy about the smell of her sweater. So we've got our brand portfolio on the top right. It looks like we have a new product down there in the bottom left. I'll tell you what the communication objectives were from the brand. They wanted to make the viewer aware of the portfolio of scent bead products. They did want to let the shopper know that one of them happened to be new, and they did want to provide this smell definition. They also had a purchase barrier that they communicated to us, and that's was many shoppers are not participating in this category yet and don't know that it's added to the washing machine. Okay, so picture this as a little shelf banner that's going to go in front of the packaging. We've got a variety of brands here, so they'll spread out a little bit. It goes in front of the packaging, probably a little bit above waist high. Okay, so those are inputs we had. We ran it through our human vision AI. And here's the raw heat map output you see. So you can see that human vision AI and what you're going to get on any AI output is sort of where that instinctive eye goes. So contrast is what's going to play a difference here. It doesn't mean that her shoulder or the area above her shoulder is inherently interesting content. It means that for that AI, it's saying, boy, this is a high contrast that we have right here. And so my eye might be drawn to those negative spaces in contrast. The burst of color in the upper right gets registered a little bit. So there's our heat map output to add to our communication objectives. So the question comes to us, what would you do to optimize this one? Bridget, why don't we pull up another poll for this one? Again, you guys can pick one, and one of them was included in our actions, and we'll talk through all of them on why some were chosen, why others weren't.
All right, participants, you should see your next poll. What'd you do?
Again, slide it over if you need to in order to see the image.
Give it another minute here. And people are thinking it over.
This one's a brain tickler.
Yep. Giving it a little extra thought after the first one threw some people for a loop. All right. Okay, so the results of this poll, what would you do? Move her image to the top. 22% thought that was the best way to creatively optimize this piece. Increase visibility of new and product, 56%. Show the product added to a washing machine, 11%, and I'm not sure, also 11%.
All right, got it. Interesting results and nice work on this one, guys. Let's show you what was changed in this one. You can see the optimized creative in the middle, and we can look at the before to the left. Let me actually speak to the points called out in our poll right here. First, the idea of moving her image to the top. Let me say flat out, that image is powerful. It actually delivers the benefit visually, and it's a bit captivating in aisle. So we certainly don't want to lose that image. There's a pragmatic problem that comes with moving her to the top. Look how she's truncated at the bottom by the piece itself. You move her to the top, do you show her full body? Do you have to draw a horizontal line to break it up? It actually makes the ad a little less organic in this case. So we wanted to keep her, but we wouldn't shift her to the top because that causes a separate set of design issues that the brand has to work through. Increasing visibility of new and product. Ding, ding, ding on this. Okay, a couple of reasons that we do that. First of all, when we're showing this brand lineup that you have, it's inherently more complicated. They had shown it in a smaller icon at the top right, and I added a few extra inputs to what this shelf talker was in aisle. But you can imagine at the scale it was, down a little bit above waist level, going to be really hard to identify those brands. And what you need from the cognitive logic here is that this product is going to deliver this kind of sensorial benefit. You want to draw someone into this portfolio of SKUs that you can get this benefit from. So we don't want them to be the only communication here. Her visual's great, but we need to hero them a little bit better. And that's one of the key things we did right out of the gate, was integrate this lineup so that they look like heroes delivering this benefit. And if someone's interested, then they get drawn in and they can get them registered and find them on the shelf. The second piece was absolutely leverage the power of new. New is a secret tool in your arsenal. That's why you can only legally talk about it for 6 months. It is a distinct advantage. So we were underplaying that in this one. And even though it was isolated to one SKU, what we did is had the brand work with their legal team. Make sure we can place that so it's legally associated with the new SKU here, but use that as a beacon in aisle. I'll let you know that we as humans we need new. We actually release dopamine in our bodies when we see it. So we can leverage new, absolutely do that. The other piece that we had there is that this usage barrier, this purchase barrier was significant. We stopped short of adding it to a washing machine. That takes this from this emotional benefit of getting the scent to a very technical how-to, but we needed to acknowledge it. So that's why we heroed the products, stated that they're in-wash scent boosters, didn't try to overemphasize it, but really connect that between the products and the benefit that she's given. Just kind of give a gentle nod. Hey guys, these goes in your washer. They're not for your dryer. And then finally, I mentioned it earlier, the impact of the visual is great. What we wanted to do was right size it so it still had an impression in the store, but really paid it off in a benefit and let the products themselves shine in this case. So again, this one put this execution in our green zone that we would know it would perform well in market. And sure enough, it did versus the other. Again, consistent with what we've seen anytime we're testing our optimized creative versus non-optimized creative. Okay, one more little challenge for you. And this time we're going to move over to packaging. Okay, we get a lot of packaging executions these days. You can recognize the cost of new packaging or transitional packaging. This is a brand refresh that's happening right here. Again, the brand is blinded here. We'll call it Clean and Gleam. But this was a heritage brand, been around for a few years, and they were looking to refresh their packaging and their communication for a new set of shoppers. So on their communication objectives, they wanted to be recognizable from their existing package. They wanted to send a signal that they were new and refreshed and should be considered. They wanted to communicate a claim about being a relevant, tough job cleaner. And then they also wanted to add that, hey, we're still a good value that they have right here. You'll see in this box right here, you can see 30 ounces equals 60 ounces, that they say they've got the cleaning amount or value of what you get in a 60-ounce liquid bottle. Okay, we also ran our human vision AI on this one. You can see where the instinctive eye is drawn in a moment toward the top of the package. Those two bursts are coming through, as well as the brand logo there. So our question again is, what would you do? Take a look at the poll here. Why don't we fire that one up for them, Bridget?
Here comes your third poll. What would you do?
Guys didn't know you're going to have a tough exam going on during the webinar. I'll still try to keep it light and fun, but it's making you think.
Our participants are giving this one some good thought. Almost there.
Cast your vote.
All right, we're close enough. So what would you do? Strengthen claim and usage communication, 22%.
Okay.
Mop or brush in action also scored 22%. Delete sun blast scent. I'm not sure what sun blast scent is, Lynn, but maybe you can elaborate on that. 44%, and I'm not sure, 11%.
11. Okay, well, cool. This one's a bit surprising over there on the spread that we have on this one. Let's take a look at the optimized package and talk about what changed. You guys hit it in part on that. The claim and usage communication was something to be updated right here, and we'll talk about why in a moment. Showing the brush and mop in action. Again, we want to transition from the old packaging to the new packaging. Usage on this, or potential usage occasions, or the tools you might use it with, pretty aware right there, not a barrier right now that they have. And then Sunblast Scent. It does take up a lot of high priority, but it's their scent there. One of the problems they're having is that they had a number of bursts. Their scent is going to be important in this one, and having that as a burst works. It kind of correlates mentally with how someone might register scent, but we did have too many bursts going on across the whole packaging here. So let's talk about what did change. Well, first of all, getting back to their objective here, they wanted to modernize it and have a look that spur new usage in a new generation. So part of their package refresh should do just that. Not only should it carry on some equities of shape, but we recommended they add a little more dynamic appeal that gave a nod to the cleaning power that you get from Clean and Glean. Second, we actually recommended they did reduce the use of burst. If you'll take a look here, they're using the same kind of architecture. Their type is the same in new with that red fade on a yellow background as is in Sunblast, and they're causing a lot of things to pop. They've introduced another box down here in the bottom, and it gives that effect of kind of taking sort of PowerPoint objects and placing them around. We want to streamline this package and reduce the use of bursts and make it real easy to navigate and flow without having to do a bunch of violators on it. The second, this was a big thing for them, is they needed a more compelling claim. Tough Job Cleaner would be what we'd call out as a puffery claim. You could use elbow grease and claim that that is a tough job cleaner. But if you want to be reconsidered by a new generation, you need to raise the stakes. And you can see how they effectively did that here. They took their longevity claim or their value claim and actually converted it to a 2x power claim. So it's 2x more cleaning power. It's just another way to articulate that it's got a cleaning power equivalent to something that's twice the size. So a clever way in on that claim. And then what we also did was organize their usage occasions so they're really clear and punchy. It does a couple of things. Not only is it easier to take in from a legibility standpoint versus what you see on the left, but it adds to that confident structure of the benefits you're going to get. 2x more cleaning power, floors and walls, kitchen and bath, garage and patio, and really kind of knocks it out as a job doer in this case. Now, they didn't test these side by side, but what they did is they confidently launched their new package, and it worked really well in market. They gained some distribution that they had lost before. So great outcome on these case studies that we have. And just a reminder of that end-to-end methodology that's so important to get there. The AI-enabled heat mapping is important, but it just helps with that awareness, what's getting our instinctive eye in a moment. The ability to look at the piece and examine it through an expert marketing, behavioral science-based lens and capturing that in a logical flow of the 4 C's helps us get to that persuasion and really get all the way from improving our awareness to closing the sale. And that's what makes a difference in our overall performance marketing. The output that we provide to any client, both in these cases and what we're currently doing, is you get a full report turned around in 2 days. It contains all of the human vision AI results broken out in several different ways. But importantly, it contains a thoughtful write-up across the 4 C's. What's working, where the opportunities lie, and you get those indicated actions. Hey, here's what we would go do to optimize this. So you and your creative team know exactly what to do next. You guys know creative matters. The Google study talks that it's about 70% of a campaign's importance. We have the opportunity to optimize your creative and would love to talk with you more if you're interested. Just reach out. I'm Lynn at SellCheck.com. Bridget, I think we've got a couple of minutes there. I haven't been watching chat or anything. Do you have any questions out there?
We do, Lynn.
Okay.
And if anybody scored 100% on that quiz, please send us an email and we will send you a prize. Well done. Okay, Lynn, the first question that we have is kind of a 2-part question. Do you review digital creative? And if you do, should I do static or HTML digital with animation?
Oh, got it. Okay. So do we do digital, and then what works best? Kind of. Absolutely yes on digital. As a matter of fact, I'd say about 40% of our business these days is in the digital space. A lot of times with banners, we work on social media ads. We also work to optimize your digital storefront and your product detail pages. So absolutely doing a lot of work in digital. Now, there seemed to be a question particularly about, boy, should I go in static or should I invest in HTML or movement or GIFs right there? Well, I'm going to give you an it depends answer right there. Use movement if it helps deliver your proposition. Sometimes you might have a little more complicated story in the digital medium. It's hard to capture it right there. You want to engage the shopper. We are drawn to movement, and use that movement effectively from an awareness element. Get that initial intention and then help it tell your story. Now, sometimes your investment, your marketing dollars might be limited and you don't have to. So it's not a must, but it does move that lever on getting that initial awareness. We just encourage you to make sure that motion helps deliver your product proposition and carry the viewer through.
Right, that's great. Thank you. We've got another question here. How do the SellCheck panelists know what works? That's a great question.
That is a good one. Okay, great. Well, they are deeply trained in behavioral science. I lead that training, and that's my background on really bringing the science to practical matters. But that's also built on each of their own careers they have had on owning, creating, optimizing performance marketing communication. The folks that we have as our SellCheck expert panelists are all these days in the consultative portion of their careers. But what they all have experience doing, whether they come from brand, agency, or retail, is that they have had years and years of owning, creating, and managing organizations that had to make creative work. So they've got the chops there. The other piece that we do, think of the panelists as like an expert medical panel working on your case. You've got experts talking to one another and bouncing ideas and ensuring that they are diagnosing what the opportunity is and then clearly providing you a path forward to make it better. So that expertise, deep training on behavioral science, discussing, reaching a consensus, it's like putting that expert medical panel to work on your case for a couple of days.
Yeah, that's great. That's all the questions we have today, Lynn. So I think with that, we can probably wrap it up. But if anybody has questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to Lynn. His email address is there, or me. We would love to talk further on this topic. Special thank you to our team at RAZR who helped pull this presentation together. This one was really fun to see it come together and come to life here today. We will be sending a link of today's webinar recording out following next week, following the conclusion of today's conversation. And Lynn, thank you so much. This was really fun. I know I didn't get them all right the first time I took the call. So
well, thanks for everyone participating. It's a little trickier out of the gate, but we find the people that work with us, they build that skill level over time and it keeps growing, but it's a lot of fun to work on them.
Thanks so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.